Welcome back to Express. Well, world leaders are in South Korea for a nuclear summit. They're discussing the safe use of nuclear materials. Key issues include Iran's nuclear program, as well as North Korea's launch of a ballistic rocket.
Joining us now from London, Ontario is Erika Simpson. She is an associate professor of international relations at Western University, also a former vice chair of a nuclear proliferation group called Pugwash Canada. So, Erika, first off, we know that Iran and North Korea are dominating this summit, arguably hijacking the original point, which was about nuclear terrorism. How realistic do you think it is to expect something to come out of this summit, though, when it comes to the obstinance that we've seen from countries like North Korea and Iran?
Yeah, the first summit that was held 2 years ago in Washington did focus on nuclear terrorism, and they thought that it did accomplish its goals to some extent. This conference is more focused on diplomatic negotiation, with the 54 countries talking about how to deal with countries like North Korea and Iran that are seemingly focused on acquiring their own nuclear deterrence. It's a really important conference. We're going into a whole bunch of diplomacy in the next few months. The NATO summit next month in Chicago, where they will also talk about NATO's strategic concept. And we have a whole range of initiatives, even though this is an election year in the United States. So this is an important conference for figuring out what the world is going to do about nuclear warheads that are spreading and proliferating around the world.
You mentioned the United States. They've been pleading with China to help influence the North Koreans in nuclear talks, and yet China's not listening. Why?
Well, China is the most important factor in terms of affecting North Korea. They are its strongest ally. They are the ones with the clout that can push North Korea to stop developing its own nuclear missiles, to stop this rocket testing next month, which could be the precursor. The North Koreans are saying it's a satellite. It looks like they're trying to go into space, and so the Chinese are the ones that the Americans need to influence in order to change this game. China will be very diplomatic about that. We know that for years they have really hesitated to put a lot of pressure. On the other hand, we're seeing a new leader in North Korea. He's the youngest world leader, 28 years old. He's only been the leader for 3 months. And so he may be open to manipulation. He may be open to pressure from China and from the United States. We'll see. And that's why it's very exciting, because we don't have the same group of North Korean people in power. There's a new leader, and he may be open to diplomatic negotiation. Let's hope.
Erika, we've certainly seen a ratcheting up of pressure, though. You know, North Korea talking about, as you mentioned, the space launch next month, but the U.S. and South Korea saying that more sanctions could come. The South saying it might just blow a rocket out of the sky if it crosses into South Korean airspace. How many more sanctions can be brought to bear on North Korea?
Well, the same question could be asked about Iran. How many more sanctions can be brought to bear against Iran, which is also suffering under sanctions? North Korea has always played a game where they have exchanged the prospect of sanctions for, they want more aid. North Koreans many of them are affected by famine. If you go to the demilitarized zone where President Obama was yesterday, you see soldiers that are living on 1,000 calories, hardly any food at all. And so they need food. And in exchange for food, perhaps they're willing to step back on their nuclear program, which is underground and very hard to detect. So even the CIA and the National Security Agency are not certain how many nuclear bombs that they've developed, 6, 12, 14. The maximum estimates are that they have 14. The Iranians have no nuclear weapons yet. And so all of these countries are meeting there to talk, and behind the scenes, that's where I hope that we'll see some change.
And so let's talk about Iran, because it's agreed to hold talks about its nuclear program on Friday, April the 13th. So is Iran sincere in holding those meetings?
Pardon me, I didn't hear that question.
Is Iran sincere in holding those meetings? Realistically, will they actually happen?
That's hard to say as well. Iran is divided within itself, and whether President Ahmadinejad will have the power to actually say that they'll develop nuclear weapons or not is debatable. Most people in Iran are a little mystified, but also usually in favor of developing their own nuclear weapon. They're not informed. When I've been interviewed by the Iranian media, I'm always surprised by how they think they should have the right to have nuclear energy, and they confuse that membership in the NPT, the right to have nuclear energy, with the right to have nuclear weapons. So within Iran, they also are dancing around and playing a game. Whether they'll go to the brink and actually develop their own nuclear missiles is hard to say. Russia is the big player with Iran. Just like China is the big player with North Korea, Russia is the one that can really affect Iranian politics as well. President President Obama has power, but here his hands are tied to some extent. He wants a nuclear weapon-free world, and he was very firm about that yesterday in his talks. I don't know if you heard about his speeches and so on, but he basically re-emphasized his commitment to a world without nuclear weapons. He, as a father of 2 daughters and so on, wanting a world without nuclear weapons. So that's
Erika,
interesting too.
Thank you very much.
You.
Erika
You're
Simpson with
welcome.
Western University. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.